If your blood runs orange and blue, this is the pod for you. You're listening to Orange and Blue Bloods, hosted by EJ Stewart and Tommy Beer. Let's get to it, New York.
Knicks L. So Knicks fails to execute in crunch time, leads to another crushing loss at home. The Lakers were able to outlast the Knicks 129-123, winning the game in overtime. The Lakers got out to a 6-point lead late in the fourth quarter, but the Knicks stormed back to tie the game and had the ball with 4 seconds left and a chance to win at the end of regulation. But the team failed to get a shot off on a Julius Randle isolation against Anthony Davis as time expired. New York scored just one field goal in the first 4 minutes of overtime, leading to the tough loss. LeBron James, 28 points, 11 assists, 10 rebounds, another triple-double for the King. He also passed Mark Jackson and Steve Nash for fourth on the NBA's all-time assist list. Anthony Davis added 27 in the Lakers win. For the Knicks, you had Jalen Brunson, who had another stellar game, 37 points, but was not given the ball at the end of the game in that final possession. So we'll certainly talk about that. Julius Randle, who did get the ball in that possession, had 23, but struggled offensively. He had a 6 for 19 shooting night. And another important note in this game, RJ Barrett had sat the last 11 minutes and 51 seconds of this affair, declined to speak to the media after the game. So plenty of things to jump into from this very eventful game. Let's start with that final possession in regulation with the Knicks, 4 seconds essentially with the ball, inbounding on the sidelines. What did you think of the last play?
Yeah, I thought it was definitely inefficient. I mean, obviously, we start with the fact that they didn't get a shot off in before time expired. That's inexcusable. It's inexplicable, and a lot of it has to do with the way the play was drawn up, or the lack of intricacies. With the way the play was drawn up. My first problem and biggest issue is with who got the ball. Jalen Brunson, and I wrote about in the newsletter this morning, Jalen Brunson earned the opportunity to win that game last night. National TV, tons of celebrities at the Garden, league tuning in, LeBron less than 100 points away from passing Kareem, and Jalen Brunson, again, in crunch time, put the team on his back. 4 for 4 from the free throw line in the fourth quarter. The last 3 buckets the Knicks had in regulation, Brunson either scored and or assisted on. Had that runner to cut the lead to 6, dish to Grimes to cut the lead to 4, to cut the lead to 2 rather. Had a floater himself in the paint to tie it with a less than a minute left, and then the Knicks needed to stop to give themselves an opportunity to win. Came over, drew a incredible charge on Anthony Davis as he was driving for a bucket. That's a game-saving charge, something we've seen Brunson do all year long, make winning plays. And that was a winning play to give the Knicks an opportunity to win the game. Now we flip over and we discuss the fact that on that final play, not only had Brunson been more efficient and effective that game, as you note, Randle was 6 of 19, through the first 48 minutes of that evening.
Yep.
Brunson's been more efficient and effective, far more efficient and effective in the clutch all season long. And so for, if your biggest issue is you don't want to run with, you're worried about Anthony Davis coming over and stopping, or rather LeBron James on Jalen Brunson, like that's what you're worried about. Then run a screen, run some action, any action that creates some space. You have IQ come over and run a 1-2 high pick and roll, and get LeBron in some action there. But again, on the season, I looked it up this morning. The Knicks, both Brunson and Randle, have played approximately 120 clutch minutes this season. That's what the NBA defines as as a point in any game where there's a differential of 5 points or less, and there's 5 or few minutes remaining. That's either fourth quarter or overtime. In those 120 minutes, Brunson has scored 105 points while shooting 47% from the floor, 39% from deep, and 84% from the free throw line, and has dished out 12 assists and while committing just 3 turnovers. Randle, on the other hand, has scored 56 points while shooting 27% from the floor, 23% from downtown, and 73% from the free throw line. He has 13 assists, but 11 turnovers. Again, Brunson has earned the opportunity to win that game.
Yeah.
And he wasn't given it, and it cost the Knicks that final possession, and unsurprisingly cost them the momentum, and they got crushed in overtime. And it's another loss at home, and another time in which Tom Thibodeau's lack of X and O's acumen cost the Knicks dearly.
Yeah, it's funny. So, short story, I'm watching the game at the station with my good buddy Ryan Hickey, who, by the way, also on the Audacy Network. He hosts the Indianapolis Colts podcast here. And we're watching him this game. He's also a Knicks fan. And you get to that final possession. He, knows I'm the guy who hosts the Knicks podcast on the Audacy Network. And he's like, all right, EJ, what are you drawing up here? I'm like, well, I gave him like 4 options. But it all included, something with Jalen Brunson having the ball. I was like, they could run like a 1-2 with quickly, maybe in case they want to get a switch, or maybe they could just clear it out if they like the matchup and let Jalen Brunson go 1-on-1. But I told them there were 2 things they had to keep Anthony Davis out of the action and avoid LeBron James' help. And somehow the Knicks failed at both. Both things I said. There's only things they can't do. They cannot attack Anthony Davis. And they need to avoid LeBron James' help because he's an excellent help defender. He is great with hands, great with steals, and he's going to be a problem defensively. So you had to keep him out of the action as well. And somehow the Knicks drew up I don't even want to call that a play. The fact that Tom Thibodeau keeps calling it a play is insulting to everybody's intelligence. He's back to gaslighting everybody again. He's in the postgame saying, there are 3 options on the play. I don't know what the hell he's talking about. Julius Randle posted up on the wing. Brunson gave him the ball, and nobody moved. Nope. No one moved. That's not a play. That's just you inbounding the ball. And look, Julius Randle has to move that ball. If there's any slither of bail you're going to shoot Tibbs, is that Randle made a terrible read. You're one-on-one with Davis, and then James comes over. The read is clear. You escape dribble, you throw the ball out. You ball fake, you throw the ball out. Brunson's wide open. It's a quick decision. You don't got that much time, but he's a star player. He's paid to make that decision. But we know Julius Randle struggles in those moments. We have not seen Julius Randle make a big shot like that in the regular season for his entire career with the Knicks at this point in time, in terms of like an isolation clutch at the end of a regulation kind of play. So to go through that and to put Julius in that situation, knowing that he had already struggled, and you're going up against literally one of the greatest defensive players of all time. Like Anthony Davis is that great. And you're saying my play is to let Julius decide how to go one-on-one and attack Anthony Davis. I mean, Tibbs is stealing money. Like, he's paid millions of dollars to come up with a play that put the Knicks in the best position to win. Remember, it wasn't just a timeout that he had to draw something up. He had a review that took way too long, by the way. He had like 2 or 3, 4 minutes on a review on the charge. They're still drawing up a play. They assume they're getting the ball back. And then he called the timeout. And you see him with I don't know what he's drawing. What is he drawing on that clipboard? I need someone that had whoever had the zoom lens camera that Pat Beverly had when he came on the court and had that technical foul. I need someone that had a DSLR zoom to see what the hell Tibbs drew on that whiteboard.
Tic-tac-toe? Maybe he was playing tic-tac-toe with one of the assistants, you think? Something like that?
Yeah, or like it was a SpongeBob episode when he writes, and it's just all, cursive and all decorative lettering. Like, that was, man, that play was inexcusable. And it's crazy to me because, like, while, like, we know Tibbs is not an X's and no mastermind. Like, first game of the season, they are down by 3 against Memphis. He draws up that masterclass play for Cam Reddish in the corner, and they get open 3, and they send that game into overtime. Like, I know he could have drawn something better than that. And that's kind of what's frustrating about that last play.
100%. And yes, Randle made the incorrect read, but as you know, we have 3+ years of body of evidence here that you cannot trust Randle in those for everything Randle does. 20, 10, and 5 on a bad night, on an inefficient game. There's a lot to love about Julius Randle, and there are things that he struggles with. And end game situations are bad. When guys come over and double, when 2 long players double him, he very frequently doesn't see, even though he has the ability to throw a cross-court pass, he just doesn't see it. That was another situation last night where, worst case scenario, Brunson gets an open three. Even if LeBron rushes back and gets to him in time, Brunson's downhill and gets into
Right.
the paint and can shoot a floater. But yeah, again, that's on you. A good coach puts his best players in positions to succeed, and he did Julius Randle no favors by having him isolate against a tremendously talented and long defender with another great help defender coming over. And we saw the result. And one other thing, just because you noted, and I
Yeah.
meant to mention it as well, the length of these replays is getting out of hand. We had the Anthony Davis charge one that took forever, and then the one in overtime on the
And
on the
Rui.
goaltend. It
Yeah.
seemed like it took a millennium for them to make a decision. If it's that close, that means it's too close to overturn, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It was just just ridiculous. That's something they need to work on. But that's another conversation for another day. Yes, I totally agree with you on the failure of that final play.
Yeah, and on that Rui play, it almost looked like they couldn't get the replay up for a while. Like I just kept seeing the replay center, graphic on that monitor. So it looked like there might have even been a technical issue that led
Oh,
to
okay.
that delay because there was no replay happening. They were just standing there. I'm like, are they going to look at the play? Like, what's going on? Or I thought maybe they were arguing, and we'll never know. I don't know if they were arguing whether or not they could actually review it, because sometimes that comes into contention. But there was a long time in that stretch where they weren't even actually looking at a replay. It was just a
Okay.
replay center being up. And they were
I,
just standing there.
I was in the building, so everyone in the crowd was like, "What is going on
Yeah.
here?" So, um,
Right. Yeah.
but yeah, to that point, the NBA is a $1 billion enterprise. Same goes for the NFL. If it's there's a lot of games going on a Tuesday night, then hire 10 more people. So you have the worst case scenario. You have too many people, and some guys are twiddling their thumbs. Don't allow these. I mean, it really kills the momentum of the game. It just makes for a bad product. That's something the NBA needs to work on and address immediately.
Yeah. I'm also not crazy about goaltends that aren't the ball hitting the backboard being reviewable like that, just
Agreed.
on a fly. Like I think if you wanted to give them a challenge, I get that, but
Yep.
that's almost. I don't want to say it's a judgment call, but to me, it kind of is. Like it's kind of a
Yes.
judgment call. It's like because like to say that okay, we're gonna now look back at it. Like when the ball hits the backboard, yes, I think you should be able to review that because that's
Yep.
clear. But
Yep.
that one was so close, and it's like it's really like some people. I thought he got it in time. A lot of people thought that it was about to come down, so therefore they should have gave Brunson the field goal. Like it's so bang bang. Like I just think you gotta let the person who calls on the court get that call. But the other big thing from this game, outside of the Knicks, failures and executing again in overtime, which is just us beating a drum. Russell Westbrook, I thought, had a really good overtime, and a really good fourth quarter. And I think a lot of the Lakers talked about that after the game. But RJ Barrett is sitting, the last 11 minutes and 51 seconds of this game, played none of overtime, missed the last 6-7 minutes of the fourth quarter. He, I assume, wasn't happy because he declined to talk to reporters. As what's been noted by the people who cover the team, RJ is extremely accessible normally and does not do this kind of thing, win, lose, or draw. So RJ didn't want to talk after this game. It's another game where he sat a long period of time, did not finish this one. What did you make of that decision and then what appears to be some discontent from RJ for sitting the rest of this way?
I did not have a problem with Tibbs sitting RJ Barrett. In fact, I thought it was the correct decision. IQ is playing so well right now. It's so consistently, so productive, so efficient, just on both ends of the floor, just almost an invaluable piece. As an aside, 2 games in a row now where the Knicks have come out very flat in the first quarter.
Yeah.
Randall talked about it on Saturday night after the Nets game, basically saying we weren't ready. We didn't come out with any fight on defense, on one fight through screens, weren't as crisp. That's not a good sign. And it was even worse at Tuesday night against the Lakers. Scored 5 points in the first basically 8 minutes of the game. That changed when IQ and Hardenstein was also playing really well. Credit to Hardenstein for really turning his season around over this last handful of games. And it's very much needed because Sims was outclassed against Anthony Davis last night.
And I talked about that in the last episode, that Sims against Anthony Davis could be a problem, and it was.
And it was a major problem. Sims has looked good in spurts, but since kind of being, thrown at the deep end of the pool, he has not swam. He's sunk. And just
Right.
last night was another one of those nights where you really miss Mitchell Robinson. But yeah, I say that to mention how the importance that IQ had on, and just changing the momentum, changing the kind of tenor of the game, his energy, his tenacity, especially on the defensive end, even when his shot's not falling, positively impacts the game night after night after night after night. Um, and he plays extremely well. Moments never too big. So I want him on the floor. End of games. If you want to argue that RJ could have eaten into Grimes's minutes, I can live with that argument. Again, Grimes needs to start making shots. We've talked about it for the last couple of weeks. Credit to him
Yeah.
for again contributing. Had a beautiful dime to Hartenstein late in
Oh
the fourth
yeah.
quarter.
Oh yeah. That was a gem.
Beautiful pass, and consistently, because his shot's not falling, he's attacking the basket more often. Got some dunks, got some layups, fed some scorers. But again, over his last, where's the numbers here? Over the next last 5 games, he's shooting 38% from the floor. Is 7 of 31 from downtown. That's 23%. That's not going to cut it during the stretch. It seems like he misses a huge momentum generating shot at least once a night, especially of late. He's 1 of 10 in the fourth quarter and overtime during that 5-game stretch. So he needs to knock down those shots. But again, he at least he brings it to you on the defensive end when his shot's not dropping. The situation with Barrett, as inefficient as he was offensively, he's 5 for 13 last night. He was just as bad on the defensive end. Allowed a couple straight line
Yeah.
drives by Westbrook. Just didn't look like kind of sharp and didn't look tuned in. So if he's not scoring and he does go stretches that first quarter in particular when he looked invisible, he's not going to help you much on the defensive end. I have no problem with him sitting in the fourth quarter and kind of earning those minutes. At some point in time, given as well as IQ is playing and RJ not quite living up to the standard that a lot of fans had hoped, it might be worth having a conversation. Is RJ better suited for the 6-man role? I guess we'll talk about that at some point in the future. But as far as last night goes, I don't have a problem with Barrett sitting. It will be interesting to see how he handles the media if he talks after practice today or before Thursday's game or after Thursday's game. To RJ's credit, he's been a complete consummate professional since the moment he arrived in New York as a 19-year-old. Not everybody can handle that. So I'm not going to get on him for kind of bailing on the media last night. We'll see how he handles it later this week.
Yeah, I echo that last point about RJ. I'm not gonna go crazy about him, not talking to media after that game. Sometimes it's best you probably don't. You may say something crazy. He probably realized he had a rough game, but also wanted to play. So if he comes out and says something about not getting playing time, that becomes a whole controversy. So hopefully he takes that accountability next time he does speak. Because I was on Julius Randle when he went on that month and a half stretch where he decided he just was never going to talk to the media, which was ridiculous. RJ's never done that. So, and he stood and took those answers and questions from the media during that rough Knicks stretch last season. So I'm giving him a pass there for sure. The decision to sit RJ is a tough one because, like you said, his defense is slipping so much that even when Grimes isn't making shots, it's still a decision to make as to whether or not you sit him over Barrett, because if Barrett's not scoring, he's a minus defensively. Now, I do feel like at times, like the Lakers were a tricky matchup in the sense that, because they didn't want to put Brunson on Russell Westbrook, that means somebody has to guard him. So that guy ended up being RJ Barrett for portions of this game, and Barrett's too slow. Russell Westbrook, the guy who's a declining player at this point in his career, has had moments this year come off the bench where he's played well, but has been very erratic for most of the season. And Barrett could not stay in front of him. So there, you got to make a decision. Are you going to wait for Barrett to start making shots? Now, he's had games where he goes, 1 for 8 and then makes his last 9 shots. Like, maybe on Barrett's side, he's thinking, let me keep playing. Like, I've shown, just like in the Boston game, we finally threw him back in there. I had the biggest 3 in the game, or in other games over the course of my career, that I can make plays even when I'm struggling. But at the end of the day, it's tough when you're in those decisions and you see him struggling and he can't guard anybody on the court, at least anybody that he would have to be posted up against. So yeah, Barrett's got to defend better. It's very simple. I mean, I think if he defends at the level that he's shown he's capable of in the past, then he has no concerns about playing at the end of the games. I do think that some of these rotations though have to be tweaked, because you had a stretch there where Emmanuel quickly is now playing, 14, 15 straight minutes because of just how the rotations are. And to me, that just isn't smart, just for just basic trying to get the most out of these players for that time they're playing. So maybe there's a beef there for RJ, where you can say, look, the way you're managing these minutes is kind of stupid, and it's allowing me to sit 11 minutes and other guys play 15, 16 straight minutes. Isaiah Hartenstein played 17 straight minutes at a certain point. I think there has to be some adjustment there, but until RJ starts defending consistently, I think this is going to be something that is going to be a thing for the Knicks every game. And it's crazy. I didn't think that this would be the case, but his defense was that bad last night, and I understood why he didn't play.
Yeah, it is definitely concerning that we're 50 games into the season right now, and it's not shocking that Barrett is on the bench in fourth quarter. Somebody on Twitter posted, 1 year ago he had that great game against the Lakers, and now he kind of finds himself on the outside of the rotation in crunch time. So part of that is due to the fact that how well and how indispensable IQ and Grimes have made themselves. The other side of the coin is that RJ has not progressed, especially on the defensive end, and even efficiency-wise, as the Knicks front office and coaching staff certainly would have hoped.
Yeah, I do think that, and then comes the question of is that a larger concern moving forward for RJ, who just signed a new extension? That he's a player at this point in his career that there's a question of whether or not he's going to close the game or not. I think I want to hold on those conversations until we kind of see how the season ends. For me, I think it's too early to kind of jump to that conclusion where maybe they shouldn't have given him this extension, because this could end up being a short-lived thing. Like maybe he turns it around defensively, and then we don't have these conversations in a month.
As far as the extensions, I'm not overly concerned about the extension. Again, I think it's really important to keep in mind that the cap is about to rise exponentially. You got the TV,
right.
The NBA's TV contract ending soon. Cap is going to increase dramatically. Most likely, looking ahead, projecting ahead, Barrett's going to be 18%, 17% of the Knicks total cap, and even at a 75% of what he was last year, he's still a starting player, still a good NBA rotation, at worst an average rotation player, above average offensively. He'll knock down shots. It was just, a few games ago, he knocked down that big corner three off the Brunson pass, that they needed. As you note, he's had plenty of games where he's been awful for the first 44 minutes, and we'll go on a stretch in the second half that really turned things around. Seemed to get it going a little bit in the third quarter last night after a terrible first half. So I'm not overly concerned about RJ Barrett, long term in terms of in relation to that contract extension, because I think he's a useful player. He's going to work hard. He's going to work on things he needs to improve. He plays the right way, handles himself professionally, etc. So I'm not overly concerned about that. But I think it is fair to question whether he's going to reach his ultimate upside. But again, I think that him settling for that, and I say settling because it was far less than the max, was an acknowledgement by both sides that his ultimate star level may not be reached, but I still like the floor that Barrett brings on a nightly basis.
Yeah, I do agree with that as well. Knicks lose this one. Well, one other interesting note before I move on about that game and RJ in particular was, and I know you were at the game, so I was listening to the game in parts because I was at work, so there were times where I could listen, times I couldn't. But at one point, Jim Jackson had said something along the lines that the Knicks coaching staff felt like RJ really hasn't been up to the same level he was pre the finger injury, and that they're also waiting for him to kind of get back to that level, which was surprising to me. I hadn't heard Tibbs say that to the Knicks press corps at any point, but of course they do these pre-production meetings where they talk to these coaches. So in this conversation, I guess Tibbs had mentioned that he doesn't feel like Barrett is really not, I won't say not 100%, but I think he's not up to, I guess, in the right kind of shape or in the right kind of game conditioning since the injury. So that's the first time I had heard that. Maybe that has something to do with why he's not closing these games either. I think that was important to note in that one. So Knicks lose. They now turn their attention to Thursday night, where the Knicks will be back in action at Madison Square Garden when the Miami Heat come to town.